Good afternoon. I am Arne Morris, CPA PFS. The PFS stands for Accredited Personal Financial Specialist. I joined Townsend Asset Management 4 years ago after working with various firms over the last 20 plus years. We're going to discuss annuities today. So, what is an annuity? An annuity is a contract between you and the insurance company in which you make lump sum payments or a series of payments, and in return, you receive regular disbursements beginning either immediately or at some point in the future. And we'll talk more about that as we go. Annuities are long-term contracts or investment vehicles produced by an insurance company. You invest money either in a lump sum or over time. In exchange, you can get an income in a form of regular payments. There are several types of annuities, and we'll go into the various types of annuities and their nuances. And they can be broken down, and these annuities can make distributions and payments that can start at various points of time. So what's the purpose of an annuity? An annuity is a long-term investment that's used by the insurance company and is designed to help protect you from the risk of outliving your money. This is usually done through the annuitization process. Your purchase payments, what you contribute, are converted into periodic payments that can last for a lifetime. So how are annuities used? Well, in some cases, they're used for tax deferral. They're income for life vehicles, as a deterrent for spendthrifts. So clients will put funds into an annuity, and because of the penalties for pulling out large sums of money, it may prevent heirs or beneficiaries from being a spendthrift and spending the investments too quickly. They can be used as a cash management tool, a budgeting tool, and they also can be used as an asset protection tool. In some states, annuities are protected assets from creditors. This means that if someone's sued, that it can be a protected asset. So what types of annuities are there? There's fixed annuities, index annuities, variable annuities, immediate annuities, deferred, qualified, non-qualified. So let's talk a little bit about the definitions of this. First, we're going to start with qualified, non-qualified. This is a term that you can hear if you're using an annuity product or just your regular investment accounts. If you have qualified investments, that means they're in an account that qualify for special tax treatment. That special tax treatment is that the income grows tax deferred, and when you pull it out later, that's when it's taxable. A non-qualified investment account, what happens is that as you earn interest, dividends, capital gains, you pay taxes as you go. Now with a non-qualified annuity, because it's inside of this annuity wrapper and this insurance wrapper, actually the non-qualified annuities actually grow tax deferred as well. That's a benefit that the non-qualified annuities have. So deferred and immediate. If you have a deferred annuity, that means that you put a lump sum or a series of payments inside of this insurance contract, and then at some point out in the future, you let the income grow tax deferred, and you pull out the income streams later in life. An immediate annuity is where you put a lump sum into an annuity and it starts to pay out immediately. Now, you have fixed annuities, index annuities, variable annuities. So let's talk about those. First, you have a fixed annuity. This is a promise to pay a guaranteed interest rate on an investor's contributions or investments. This type of fixed annuity can be immediate or deferred. That just merely determines when the payouts start. Investments in these annuities grow tax-free, and when withdrawals are taken, that's typically during retirement or at some point out in the future bordering retirement. That's when the income's taxable. Then you have variable annuities. And a variable annuity is a contract between you and the insurance company, and the underlying assets in the variable annuities, mutual funds. It looks very similar to a 401k plan. You build your own portfolio, and the rates of return vary. They can be up when the markets are up. They can be down when the markets are down. Now, you can buy riders that can give you guaranteed income streams and that can guarantee certain things, but the rates of return inside of a variable annuity They vary. And then you have this hybrid product, and they're called index annuities. And the index annuity, it pays a rate of interest or return based on a market index, such as the S&P 500 or the Russell 1000. And these index annuities, what they do is a hybrid between fixed annuities and the variable annuities. It can give you some of the benefits of participating in the financial markets and the returns of the markets, probably with some caps, but it also can provide you with some downside risk. But unlike a fixed annuity, it doesn't always give you a guaranteed stated rate of interest or return. And so this is a hybrid model. So you also have commission-based annuities and no-load annuities. So I want you to know that anytime a Townsend Asset Management advisor talks to you about an annuity, it's going to be an RIA-based annuity or a no-load annuity. And so when you talk to a life insurance agent or a commission-based advisor, they may talk to you about a commission-based annuity. And so what are some of the differences? With commission-based annuities, you have large sales commissions or loads. These loads could be anywhere from 7 to 15%. They usually have higher internal management fees. There's a surrender charge and surrender periods. Usually the higher the commission, the longer the surrender period. Those surrender periods can be anywhere 7 to 10 to 15 to 20 years. Their surrender charges also usually mirror the surrender periods, and so they could be anywhere from 7 to 15 years. So if you bought an annuity with a 10-year surrender period and a 10% surrender charge, the way that it would work is that if you got into the annuity and in year 2, you decided that you had an emergency and you needed to take a lump sum or you needed to pull the money back out of the annuity, there'd be a penalty, which is the surrender charge. And it might be because you've been in there one year. The first year would be 10%, year 2 would be 9%. So there might be a 9% penalty to pull those funds out of that annuity. And then it's declining. If it was in year 3, it'd be 8%, in year 4, it'd be 7%, and it declines until it gets back down to 0 after 7 to 10 years. And then there's all types of riders that you can add, which also increase the cost. So in these commission-based annuities, you might have 4 to 5% in total annual management fees throughout the year. And so your hurdle rate or your rate of return has to exceed 4 to 5% before you start making money inside of these annuities. With the no-load or RIA-based annuities, there's no sales charges, so there's no commissions. Usually the internal management fees are lower. They may range from 2 to 2.5%. Usually there's no surrender periods, or if there is a surrender period, it's a very short surrender period, 1 to 2 years. And usually that's because of a rider that you've added on to give it some type of guarantee. And so what it does is there's no incentive for an advisor to sell you an annuity that's not appropriate for you. Whereas with the commission-based annuity, because you have a 7 to a 15% sales commission, there could be some incentive for them to advise you to use a product that may not be the most appropriate product. So what asset class, when we're talking about these annuities, does it resemble? And we would say it has some similarities to bonds because of the guaranteed rates of return. So let's talk about some of the pros and cons of annuities and some of the pros and cons of bonds. So first, with annuities, you have the guaranteed rates of returns. You potentially could have some partial market participation with minimizing downside risk. You can have guaranteed income streams for life or for some fixed period of time, guaranteed for 10 years, guaranteed for 20 years. So you can put some guarantees in these annuities. So when you're building your financial plan, you can know for certain periods of time what some income streams would look like and what those distributions would be. And you can build some guarantees into your portfolio. So with bonds, you also can go out and buy bonds with a fixed rate of return, a 4% bond over a 10-year period. Or you can buy a 3-year bond or a 2-year bond or a 10-year bond or a 30-year bond. And so you can find bonds that have fixed rates of return. At the end of those terms, when the bond matures, the principal is returned. And then what you have to do is you have to go out and reinvest into another bond and find the appropriate time period. Historically, bonds have provided higher rates of yields. Now we're in a very low yield environment currently, but historically bonds have provided higher rates of return. Bonds are usually a lower risk, they're considered safe, low default rates, and we'll talk about those various types of bonds: corporate bonds, government bonds, muni bonds, and you have to work with someone to figure out which bond is most appropriate for your portfolio. So what are some of the disadvantages of bonds and annuities? Well, annuities, it's the fees. Depending on how you purchase an annuity, they often come with high sales charges or high annual expenses, unless you're using a no-load or RIA-based annuity that has no sales commissions. Fees can be even higher in actively managed annuities, annuities that have mutual funds that the underlying managers are active and they have higher internal management fees. Or if you add on these special riders, that can increase the cost of the annuities. And so the surrender charges and the various riders, it's just fees, fees, fees. So that's a disadvantage of a commission-based annuity, and you have to manage that with the RIA-based annuity. So taxes on the annuities. When you pull money out of an annuity, it's considered ordinary income. Whereas when you pull money out of a non-qualified investment account, you make it preferential rates for long-term capital gains or dividends at 15% to 20%. Whereas if it comes out of an annuity, no matter what type of earnings it is, it comes out as ordinary income at your ordinary income tax rate. Investors that are in lower tax brackets, this may not matter as much. But investors who are in higher tax brackets, the fact that that money is coming out of an annuity in the ordinary income tax rate, it could matter because the highest tax bracket is 37% in 2020. Whereas, again, if you could get something out at a long-term capital gains rate at 20%, this could be beneficial. So what are some of the cons of your bonds? Well, we mentioned you can go out and buy a bond for a finite period of time, 1 year, 3 years, 5 years, 15, 30. But when that period of time is over, you have to go back out and reinvest those funds at whatever the current market rates are. So bonds that are maturing currently, we're in a very low interest rate environment. And because of that, that's why some people have been turning and looking at annuities to solve that fixed income need. And then you have default risk. As I mentioned, you have government backs, munis, corporates. Well, actually, if you look at it, government-backed bonds, as large as our deficit is, the U.S. government has never defaulted on one of their U.S. government-backed bonds. When you look at muni bonds, there's some risk. You're actually loaning the money to a state, so it could be the state of North Carolina, it could be the state of New York or California. Well, there is some default risk that you have there. But if you look at it, muni bonds have only had less than 1% as a default rate on average. So very low rate of default. And then you have corporate bonds. You have AAA rated, AA, single A, triple B, double B. Well, when you start getting into the double B and less, now you're starting to get into high yield or potentially junk bonds. And that's where you get into a higher rate of default risk with the corporate bonds. And so again, you have to take a look at what type of returns you're looking for, how much risk you're looking for in those bonds, and then have someone help you and assist you with finding an appropriate bond based on the length of term and the amount of risk that you're willing to take. So how can annuities fit into your portfolio and your plan? Well, they can be pretty useful in these low interest rate environments due to the guarantees that are built into these annuities. In many cases, we're using annuities as a fixed income replacement. With the historically low interest rates today, annuities potentially can provide greater returns with some guarantees that bonds just cannot produce currently. So why do you want to provide these guaranteed income streams and guaranteed returns? Well, it can provide stability in your portfolio. It can allow your equities to have time to go through the up and down cycles with the investment markets. So While the equities are down, you can know that these guaranteed income streams are coming in from these annuities. You also can use annuities to rescue cash value life insurance policies. If you have a cash value life insurance policy that's no longer needed, you can use the 1035 exchange and roll the cash value that's inside the life insurance policy into an annuity, and through some systematic distributions, potentially reduce any negative tax consequences of surrendering the cash value life insurance policy. So this way you may be able to drag it out and pull it out over a longer period of time and maybe at lower tax rates. So the bottom line, annuities and bonds both offer steady sources of income. Annuities and bonds both can provide stability in your portfolio. Annuities can provide an income stream that lasts for the rest of your life. Bonds provide income for a specific period of time, 3 months to 30 years or more. There's many types of annuities. Finding the right one that fits your needs requires due diligence and research. I recommend you always consult with a qualified financial advisor who can make recommendations on your age, your risk tolerance, your time horizons, and the current market environments. I thank you for your time today, and I open the floor up to questions.